So great, thanks. Yeah, so it's my I think third time at an iMoot. And last year I presented, right after that I was waiting for the next iMoot and hopefully a chance to present. So I'm back here, and I think at the moment we have only Lynn and Wendy. Hopefully a few more will join. Yesterday was my second session, so yesterday we had some more people. I've also uploaded the slides in the presentation space. Oh yeah, we have one more person. Hi, Natalie. So it's going to be about half an hour talk about this, and so anytime you have any comments, just post a message on the chat window, and we can just take the comment right then, or maybe in the end of the session. So this is about formative assessment using Moodle Quiz. I work for an international development charity called INASP, which is based in the UK, but I live in India in a small town called Pondicherry in the south of India. And I got my MCCC a couple of years back. I also blog about Moodle now and then because I like to say some things now and then, and blogging is a good way to do it. Okay, so this is about really the Moodle quiz, and a Moodle quiz is often used to build multiple choice tests. And but this is, I think, at the outset itself, the multiple choice test. In my experience, so much of this talk is really about my experience working largely in an international development context for about more than 5 years. So in doing this, I don't work at a university. I don't work in a very formal context. So I found that attitudes towards this kind of test vary greatly across countries, even people, even the same within the organization. So people don't know if that's the best tool. They don't know if questions can be created to test for the right kind of things. There are concerns about cheating. And then there's high effort to create multiple choice questions or quizzes, but this talk is not really about, it's sort of shifting the stage to not talk about tests as a way to, all of these, many of these concerns are really, okay, to evaluate, how do we evaluate what learners know, and so multiple choice tests is the best thing. But this talk is not about that, it's about using the Moodle quiz for a different objective. So so an MCQ test needn't be about evaluating what the learner knows, giving them a score and an answer key. This is how it is often used, or it's often used in a summative assessment context, right at the end of a course. Even in the MCCC that I took a couple of years back, there was an exam, a 1 hour timed exam on Moodle Quiz, using Moodle Quiz. Yeah, it was a little challenging, but I did pass it, which is why I got the certificate. But that wasn't the only time quiz was used. There were also smaller quizzes during the period of the course, the training course for the MCCC, and that did help. Yeah, the summative assessment was quite a big feature of that course, and I know it's sometimes scary to think that there is an exam coming up. Yeah, now briefly going over what is formative, what is summative assessment. You might already know this, but I've tried to put these things in my words. I'm not really. Lynn, can you hear me okay? Okay, maybe I'll just carry on. Sorry if there's any background noise. India is a very noisy place, so okay, fading in and out. Okay, maybe I'll just speak a little louder. Okay, all right, so formative assessment is to help the learner find out what they have understood. So I've bolded the word learner. That's really what it's really about, and assures learners that it's fine to make mistakes. It shouldn't create stress. It shouldn't be like, oh, I've got one chance for this quiz and I'm going to get a score. And even if it's not, if they say, yeah, take the quiz, but and if they get a low score, then they're going to be worried about it. So, and then it results in something that the learner can build upon to do further, learning. And it can be a step towards summative assessment. It's not to say summative assessment is bad. I definitely wouldn't say that. I like actually end of course examinations myself. it gives me something to work towards and makes me feel like I can, I want to do it well and get a good grade or a certificate. I like summative assessment, but formative assessment is sort of can lead to something, or can just be, can just stand by itself. Now, summative assessment is the focus is, I feel it's more on the teacher. The teacher really wants to know what the learner has understood at the end of the course. Because after the end of the course, after the exam, well, people go their separate ways. They wouldn't, there's not much interaction after that. There's an expectation of good performance. So even if there is something like a pass mark, or there is one attempt or something like that, there is an expectation that learners have to pass or to perform it well, and they have a limited kind of whether it's number of attempts or whatever, just keep using the Moodle terminology, but they have a kind of a structure where they have to perform well. That structure could be very strict, or even if it's a bit lenient, but that expectation is there. And then it results in something that the teacher can use to report on the course, to give grades, and that's it, the course ends. And the learners know, how they've performed, but do they get feedback? Can they build upon that? That's where not so much. Formative assessment is better for them to build on, to take action on after finding out what they've learned. Anyway, so now moving on to the course I teach. So again, I'd like to say that I don't work at a university or at a school. For 5 years, I've been working in an international development context. I work in INASP, and particularly the Author Aid project, which supports developing country researchers in publishing their work. And one of the things we do is we run online courses in research writing and proposal writing. So the course in research writing, which is about how to write a research paper for publication in a journal, there's a lot of demand for it, because I guess if you work at a university, you would know about the publish or perish culture. Academics have got to publish their research, got to do research, publish it. Of course, it is part of the academic experience, but in developing countries, there are a lot of constraints and challenges in doing research and in writing and publishing it. So Author Aid works really with developing countries, mostly in Africa. So it's now offered as a MOOC because the demand has increased over time. Earlier, we would run small online courses for about 50 people or so. So we run it as a MOOC. So now that brings with it challenges about how do we evaluate, whether evaluate, or how do we give some help learners understand what they know, because we can't give individual attention to everyone. So I've created the content for this course using a tool called EXE Learning, because my organization would like to, there was a requirement that we should create content that can be distributed in a standalone format and shouldn't be fixed only to Moodle. I was using Moodle Lesson earlier, but I moved to EXE Learning. And it has 5 sections, 5 weeks. So each section has a few lessons, and then a Check Your Understanding Moodle quiz. So this is the formative assessment bit that I'm talking about. And also some peer assessment activities that I use, for which I use Moodle Workshop, and I spoke about this one, the making peer assessment work last year, the iMoot last year, and that was also informed by the same course. So I'm kind of, I'm using this course as a foundation to make more than one presentation. It's just such a big course these days, so much demand, and lots of opportunities to try new things. So this is about the course I teach. And it's not accredited. There is no university watching what we do or giving some CPD points, but yet people come to us because the Author Aid brand is well known among researchers in developing countries, and it means something to them if they get an Author Aid course certificate. That's really kind of how it works. That I think the brand takes it far. But because it's not accredited, there's nothing very formal, so we have a lot of room to be to experiment. Now, learner profile, this is the challenging bit, that it's while having the freedom is nice, but the learner profile is just too broad. We have lots of different kinds of people. They are kind of notionally called researchers, but maybe some of them have never done any research. They're aspiring researchers, and they've come from more than 60 developing countries. They do hold a bachelor's degree, but they're not so much comparable. They have different. While all of them have some, they work in English because the course is only in English, but there's also very wide variations in English fluency across different countries. reading skills, writing skills also, and limited experience with online courses. And another problem is because the topic is about research writing, a lot of researchers encounter this when they start working in research, but they develop incorrect assumptions about how to write a paper, how to publish a paper. They and then sometimes hard, so those they've got to unlearn those things and learn the correct things. So. And of course, anyone can enroll. So even somebody who doesn't have a bachelor's degree can enroll. We don't monitor the enrollment. So it's very, very broad. We've got to cater to. We've got to keep this in mind. So now I'll show you some. A couple of screenshots of how the course page looks. Fairly minimal. So of course, these are sections, course induction. Discussion forum. Now, perhaps I'll kind of expand my presentation. I'll fit it to the width, or just expand it because to see it better. You can also expand the window, the presentation window. So yeah, this is this course induction discussion forums. There are 9 forums actually on different topics. So I put them all in one place, so it's easy to access the different forums. And literature review is the first section of the course. There are a couple of files or lessons, a quiz. So now a closer look at what does the section contain? This is an example of the research ethics section in the course. There are 3 lessons and a quiz. There's also a peer assessment activity, but when I took the screenshot, that activity had moved to the assessment phase, so it's not here. Anyway, this presentation is part of the quiz. So so this is a check your understanding quiz. So 3 lessons followed by this. So yeah, pretty, it's not much there. What's in the quiz? I'd like to show you the lessons also, but maybe that's for the next year's iMoot. Now I'm going to talk about the quiz. Multiple choice questions. All of them are based entirely on the course lesson. So it's really at the level of recall, understanding. It is not at higher levels. So it's kind of, I'm not like very proud of how these quizzes have been developed. I would say they're rather basic. That's really it. Because this is a non-profit I work for. I'm pretty much the main Moodler. And I do a lot of things. I'm the site administrator, course creator, facilitator, and I'm also a subject area person for this. So I have to work with sometimes very limited time and kind of come up with something. So I came up with a basic quiz on just testing recall or understanding. Now, is it too basic? It's something we could talk about in the chat. So I'd like to present some feedback that we got from learners. So this is for a recent MOOC that ended. There were about 900 people who completed it. So the question was if you felt the weekly quizzes were not at the right level of difficulty or something like that. I know it's strangely worded, but there was a previous question, so that kind of set the stage for this one. But I thought this is a question contains a meat of the response. So most 84% say they were at the right level of difficulty. 10% thought too easy, 5 say too difficult. So it seems okay. It seems like the learners respond to it well. They don't think it's too easy or too difficult. But again, I'm not sure if we can just close the chapter here for this. So I'll bring this up again also, that can we really infer something meaningful from what the learners feel? Okay, so this is just a piece of feedback though, and it would indicates that learners think it's at the right level. Now, what is the most useful part of the course was another question. So here it's people could select multiple choices. So 94% they said lessons, so not surprising, I guess. And then 80% said quizzes were really useful, and some of the other things were not so, I guess, hot for the learners. Peer assessment, we put in a lot of work to try to make this work well, but yet ultimately they get feedback from their peers, and some of them are not happy with that. Many people are, but anyway, so it does look like this weekly quizzes are really, they found it one of the most useful parts of the course. So that's also good. All right. So now I'll move on into I'll show you exactly what are the settings I've used in the Moodle quiz to build these weekly quizzes. which, or check your understanding, or formative assessment. They all mean the roughly same thing. So I'm just sharing my experience. I don't know if it's the most pedagogically sound approach. And yeah, please be a critic. Tell me what you think. Point out in flaws. I know there are flaws in the way this is. What kind of questions are there in the quiz. So yeah, I'm looking for feedback, and I'd appreciate your thoughts. Some overall features. So as they are the level of questions are really about recall or understanding. They're all multiple choice, not any of the essay or short answer type questions. I wonder, maybe there are a few matching square questions here and there, but kind of not too different from the conceptually from multiple choice, I think. Yeah, so negative marking is there for incorrect choices in multiple select, and 10 to 20 questions in each quiz. So this is like the features of every quiz. Now, a closer look at the settings. So the quizzes, every quiz is open until the end of the course. There's no time limit. So I like the end of the course availability, because of course the other option is to close the quiz at the end of every week. But I thought that might create some stress. Learners might feel like, oh, they've got a deadline coming up right in the first week. And it's a MOOC, and it's people they come to us without they're not part of our Moodle system or structure. They're just new, and and I've tried having deadline in the first or second weeks, and it doesn't work. People are just they get flustered. They're not used to it. So end of course, so give them time to settle into the course. Even if they're catching up later, they have a chance to take the quiz, and they can make multiple attempts, maybe one. So I think I do like this, that it's open till the end of the course. Time limit, I'm not sure. Is it good to set a time limit or not? We have some other quizzes in the course for which there is a time limit. This, I've opted to not set a time limit. That's I don't have a strong opinion on this though, but whether this is good or not. Okay, so that's one set of settings. So this is all in the, if you've used Moodle Quiz, you would have seen all of these settings and even more in the edit settings page in any quiz. So it's really all from there. Layout and question behavior. So, and also maybe I'll mention now only that it's unlimited attempts. So learners can make unlimited attempts on the quiz, which I'll show in the next slide. So question order is shuffled randomly. So every time they make a new attempt, they see a new set of, a new order of questions. And I like to keep all the questions on one page, because there are a lot of learners on our course. And I think if we have multiple pages, there is a kind of interaction that happens whenever they click the next button to go from one page to another. And I think might increase the load on the server. So I like to keep them all in one page. Question behavior. So yeah, shuffle within questions. So yeah, there's a new order of choices within a question every time they take the quiz. And deferred feedback. So feedback is given not immediately, but later. And even that, so I'm going to talk about that right now. So grading attempts and review. Unlimited attempts they get, and then the highest grade is recorded. So let's say a learner gets 90%. They're like, yeah, they want to aim for 100, and then they end up with 80% because they chose another set of options. They don't need to worry as such, because 90% is the one that is recorded. So they're free to make mistakes even beyond achieving the passing grade. So that's, I think, maybe the next one. So it's really high. I would have liked to present everything on one slide. There is a passing grade, which I'll come to very soon. So review option. So this, I've set it up in a certain way such that after every attempt, they can go through their attempt. They can see the marks they've got at the overall level, also at the level of a question. So specific feedback is whether they got a question right or wrong, but they're not shown the right answer. Of course, so they do get some clues about, okay, I got this question wrong, so something else is a correct option. At that level, they do see it. Of course, we could restrict it even further, but I've just kept it a little more open. And there's also, I think, the overall feedback is perhaps, yeah, that feature I really find it useful, which I'll come to very soon. I'll show you what kind of overall feedback we give. So this is during the course, immediately after the attempt and later. So we give a limited review. Then at the end, they can see whether they got it right, what is the right answer, So yeah, if you're going to use this, I would encourage you to try out different things. This somehow, after some experimentation, for me, this seems to work. I like this kind of array of settings. Of course, it's not. I'm sure it's not the only way to do this. So yeah, basically limited review of quiz attempts and answer keys available after the course ends. There's a passing score. So this is, I use Moodle 2.6, so I have to go deep into the categories and items and select every quiz, kind of the settings over there, and then put the passing grade. Although I think in newer Moodle versions, the passing grade is right in the edit settings page. Yeah, so here I use a passing grade of 80%, which seems fine. It doesn't seem too high, not too low. Yeah, so again, something to kind of, I'm not sure if this is the best passing grade for a quiz like this. All right, so yeah, overall feedback with grade boundary. So this is also in the quiz settings. So here, perhaps you can maximize the window in case to see it closely. So grade boundary, yeah, it was the first time I actually used the grade boundaries when I set it up, and I really liked how it worked. So when they get between 80% and 100%, they get this feedback that they've passed the quiz, right? So yeah, and when they okay, yeah, maximize didn't work for me. I couldn't see the second part. Anyway, so when they get below 80%, they get a message saying that, okay, sorry, you've not passed the quiz. You need to get 80%. Why don't you go through the lessons again and attempt the quiz? Yeah, so this is what how the overall feedback, what I've done there. And so now so this is a summary of a learner's attempts on a quiz. So there's a real learner who took the quiz last October. So you could look perhaps closely at the timestamp. So the first attempt, they completed it on 26 October at around 10 p.m., 11 p.m. and they got 6.4. So they got this feedback that, oh, you're not passed the quiz. So they could even review it and see, some level of what marks they've got for each question, but they can't see the right answer. So this person took the quiz again about 10 minutes later, and then, well, unsurprisingly, didn't do much better, just increased their score very slightly. So again, they get this message. So the message also says you can re-attempt the quiz any number of times, but they must pass the quiz. So a week later, 2nd November, this time they took the quiz and passed it. They get the more congratulatory message. So someone at this talk who said that one thing we could do is to enforce a delay between one attempt and another, which is also something you can do in the Moodle quiz settings. I've seen it, but I've not used it, and I thought, so I could do that also. I could maybe give a day or two, enforce a delay between one attempt to prevent people from trying to pass the quiz by brute force. So this is, I think, fairly. I've seen a lot of people with such attempt reviews, and they've made more than one attempt to pass it. So yeah, this is a summary of how it looks for the learner, what happened to one particular learner in one quiz. So I'm pretty much near the end of the talk. So these are some questions that I like to think about. I've not arrived at any answers. So if you have any views, please share them here, or you can email me later. So what is the right level of difficulty? So as I said, for a formative assessment quiz, I've just used recall, understanding, fairly low-level questions. What about higher-level questions? Okay, I've jumped to the third point. So I guess that, I guess with higher-level questions, the quiz becomes more difficult or more challenging. So, and then the feedback itself, is it a good thing that learners say the quizzes are the right level of difficulty, or is this a bad thing? So maybe, as a learner, perhaps they're like, oh, I passed the quiz, or I took a couple of attempts, and it was good. But so they don't want to say it was too easy, perhaps, because maybe they have or too difficult. I don't know, maybe they feel that it's the right level, but does it really mean from pedagogical standpoint, it's the right level? Yeah, thanks, Natalie. So, yeah, it is reliable. I guess perhaps I'm being overly pessimistic or skeptical. Right. So, what else? Yeah. So the other kind of questions, and then would it make the quizzes too challenging? And already, when I built the quizzes the first time, I thought, well, these are so simple or even trivial. I don't know what I'm doing. But really, the reason I made these quizzes was not the formative assessment. Is kind of a later realization. I did this because when we use the EXE learning content, so I don't use the SCORM version, it's just an HTML output that I plug into the course. So then I don't know what they've done except perhaps just click it. So I thought, well, I need to know if they've actually read it even. So it was really to kind of check whether they've gone through the lesson. I thought anybody who just goes through the lesson is going to pass the quiz, but it turns out it added an interesting dimension. It wasn't a trivial dimension. So yeah, so they do make more than one attempt. And yesterday someone said that, well, there's a lot of, there's a big issue with reading skills. I don't know what context they were working in, but I know, yes, in my context, researchers in developing countries, you would think researchers would have good reading skills, but they don't, especially online. A lot of, depends on, the reading background. So they're not paying attention. Maybe they're just scrolling through page after page of content. Yeah, so I would like to make them more, introduce more kinds of questions, but it seems to be working today. Yeah, so I'm going to just read one more comment from Natalie. Yeah, I do think quizzes. I'm at my organization. I'm trying to convince people that quizzes are really are brilliant if they're done right. But generally, initially, a lot of people. And I don't work in higher education, and I work with a lot of people from a social sciences background. So they think a multiple choice quiz is really dumbing down the complexity of life or the subject. But I think that it doesn't have to be that way. It can still be, can still reflect in a certain sense of complexity. So yeah, yeah. So this is really everything. I mean, these are things I think about, and it's good to know that what you feel as well. Yeah, exactly. I think yeah. So EdTech is being often discussed only at the level of the tool level and not how it is used. And yeah, and even the tools itself, people are not. A lot of people I work with, so people new to Moodle who would like to use Moodle, they don't see they are not aware of the tools, and even if they are, these just seem to exist in a vacuum. They're not. Yeah, so they think, oh, tools, but then yeah, mapping it. So I guess those are part of it's a larger topic than of this. This is just one part. Yeah. So do you have any other comments? I mean, I've pretty much reached the end of the presentation. So if you what about? Sorry, I have one more question. So do you think the question should focus on application analysis synthesis, in a formative assessment? Is that a good idea? That's the last. Any final comments on those who are here? All right, great. Thank you. I'm going to check it out. All right. So yeah, okay. So let's check out this website Natalie has shared with us. Okay, yeah, I think that's it from me. Thank you all for coming here, and over to Wendy, perhaps.
Yeah, thanks, Ravi. I was just going to jump in and say thank you so much. There was so much there to think about. And thank you. Your questions were really awesome at the end. You've got a lot of people thinking. So as I said earlier, if you have any more questions, make sure you can use the forums to speak to Ravi, and I'd love to actually, and obviously he's put his details up there as well. Thank you, Ravi, once again. It's been fabulous to have you back.
Thank you so much, Wendy, and thank you all for being here. And yeah, please use the forums or email me. So thank you. Hope you have a good time at the rest of the conference.